Tom Schick. Okay, so Tom Schick is here, and this he's the creator of Major Tom's Tarot of Marseille, which I have right here. And I found it very intriguing because there really aren't that many modern takes on the Tarot of Marseille, which is a typically, it's a classic French deck, and people are very passionate about the Marseille. So tell me about yourself as an artist and a tarot practitioner.
Right. Okay. Well, art was something I was always interested in from a very young age. I mean, I suppose like most kids, I started with coloring books, but then went on to use my crayons to draw my own pictures, and my parents were very supportive with that. They, starting at age 12, they got me art lessons, and that kind of thing. And then my college major was art and education, so I trained to be an art teacher, although I never actually worked as an art teacher. My career directions went in so many other directions, but yeah, it's making art is something that's just a part of me. I've always done it.
At what age did you start to get into tarot or realize that it's something intriguing and wonderful?
Well, I first encountered tarot about age 10. I was staying with my grandparents, and like most kids, I was opening every drawer in the house kind of thing, and I found where my grandmother kept her playing cards, and in among the playing cards was a 1JJ Swiss Tarot, and it fascinated me. And even at that early age, I decided I'd like to draw something like this someday. And of course, that languished for decades before I actually took any action on it. But yeah, that's where it started.
Okay. So why the name Major Tom for the deck?
Okay, well, I put my own name on it. I mean, my name is Thomas Schick.
Mm-hmm.
My friends call me Tom. I had a 12 years of active duty in the U.S. Air Force, and 2 years after I left active duty, I was still in the inactive reserves, and they promoted me to major.
Oh,
So I became Major Tom.
Major Tom, yes.
And I went with that because people relate to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, it really makes it sort of friendly. It's almost like a nickname you call someone, or a familiar term. Oh, Major Tom, how you doing? It's because you got Tom, which is obviously a shortened Thomas. So it makes it. That's the first thing you see when you encounter this is the name, and I think a name of a deck is really important because it's the first step drawing you into the deck, and so that's interesting. How long did it take you to create the deck?
Okay, well, there's a little bit of a backstory to that, I guess. I started creating the deck in December of 2003, and that came about because at the time I was a moderator on the Eclectic Tarot forums,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the other moderators there was Jean-Michel David, and he was instrumental in planning the Melbourne International Tarot Conference in 2005. and had suggested that the group on Eclectic Tarot might like to participate in a card per week study, which would end right before the International Tarot Conference in July of 2005. And so I decided to participate in that and study the Tarot of Marseille, a card per week. And as part of that study, I decided to draw my own version. And so that's what I did. Of course, Eclectic Tarot forums shut down a number of years ago now, but the old thread is still there in the archive. And if you wanted to, you could go to the Eclectic Tarot Forums archive and look at the tarot deck creation threads, and there's one in there about Major Tom's Tarot of Marseille.
It's still a great site. I'm so glad it's still up because it's a great resource.
Oh yeah, it was incredibly influential back in the noughties.
Yes. So in the booklet you talk about how you created it, and I really like, you said you tried to retain the same feel of drawing. You inked with and then with ballpoint before you scanned them into a computer, and then you created gradient backgrounds. So you bridge the analog and the digital, which is just, a lot of us do that. Because we're just living in a digital age. Analog is, we love it. We're sort of romanticizing analog. So bridging the two processes, how did you find that, taking your analog creation and then doing some digital stuff to it?
It was a little challenging at first because I was actually drawing in pencil and then tracing over that to get a darker line. And the challenge was getting the areas defined so any paint wouldn't spill all over the place. So I guess what I'm saying is it was a little bit tedious, but I think worth the effort in the end.
What did you take away from the process once you were done? Were you exhausted, excited? How was your feeling once you finished the deck?
Oh, I was incredibly excited because I got it done about a week before the conference down in Australia, and Jean-Michel David had asked me to bring the digital files with me. I didn't understand at the time why, but I was happy to comply. So we didn't have thumb drives in those days yet, so I put it on a CD and took it to Australia with me, where Jean-Michel, it was a 5-day conference. Jean-Michel arranged to have a limited edition of 50 copies printed during the conference and had them ready to go by the final day. And it was really an exciting time, actually getting to hold the deck, all printed. So that was fun.
So why the Marseille and not like a Rider-Waite clone? What drew you to the Marseille in particular?
Well, like I said, the first deck I ever encountered was the one J.J. Swiss, which, while not a Marseille, is similar enough. Mm-hmm. And history always one of my strong suits anyway, and so I didn't know much about it when I started. And the whole process taught me a lot about the Tarot of Marseille, and I think improved me as a tarot card reader as well. In fact, I always encourage my students to draw a card they might have, to actually create their own version of a card they might be having trouble with. Because I don't know if you've encountered this before, but a number of tarot deck creators have reported experiencing the energy of a card while creating that card. And I even know some tarot deck creators who feel anxious when they go to create a tower card, for example, because they're actually inviting that energy into their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And well, yeah, I can confirm that that does happen. That the energy of a card while you're creating it manifests itself in your life.
Yeah.
It'll show up somehow or another.
Yeah, you do get that intrepidation when you're. I've traced and kind of created my own little majors only deck. That it's not something I would want mass produced, but it was a tool for me to learn more about, particularly the different types of Marseille decks. And each one has its own nuances. You have the different ones, and they do have their own energies. They're all a little different, little nuances, and you feel that, And some leave out little details. Some have lots of details, and it's really interesting to experience that with multiple decks.
Yes.
So
yes.
I have some questions, particularly about the deck, because
Okay.
that really. So one of the quirkiest and coolest things I thought was using ball caps as crowns. What made you choose a ball cap and not like a top hat, or because the magician has a top hat? What drew you to using and like tennis shoes? I know your goal was a modern take, and the dress really, like a king, his crown, his robes. Tell me more about that.
Okay. Well, I didn't make that decision to replace crowns with ball caps until I got to the fourth card in the deck, and I was creating an order, and it had been set up by, that's the one.
Yeah.
And looking at the Emperor in most of the versions of the Tarot of Marseille that I was looking at the time, his crown resembled a ball cap worn backwards.
It does, with that little swoop in the back, yeah.
With a swoop in the back. And so from that, I decided that all the crowns could be baseball caps because, well, it's more relatable to a modern audience. And of course, I drew a lot of criticism when the deck first came out, as I was saying things like, well, modern leaders wear baseball caps more often than they wear crowns. And I had people telling me, well, come on, modern leaders wouldn't be caught dead in a baseball cap. But of course, events since those days have proven that wrong. Certainly during the Trump years in this country, politicians were racing to wear baseball caps.
Absolutely.
So I suppose I was a little prophetic with that, perhaps.
Let's see. The back of the cards is interesting. It's very heraldic, like a herald, you know, like your family crest. Um, what made you? What were your thoughts in creating it? Because it's definitely reversible, which I love, but um, it's very red dominant.
Yeah, that's an interesting story as well. The limited edition um, had a black and white uh, back, and I wanted to do something similar with this edition, the Schiffer edition, but my editor said, well, we've got budget for color on the back. And so even though I sent in a black and white file, it was my editor who decided to color it red. And I'm rather glad she did because I like the way it turned out. But I definitely wanted monochrome to contrast with the color of the card faces.
You have a great card. You have two cards, extra cards that are kind of in the deck, and one is talking about the numbers and helping people interpret it, and the other is the colors, which of course both are very important. But one of the things that I really think is lovely about this deck are the pips and their backgrounds and the colors used. I think they're gorgeous.
Thank you.
They are, uh, as far as pips go, they're some of the most interesting pips in a Marseille I've ever seen, to be honest, because the colors make them really dynamic. And, you know, a lot of classic pips are just kind of, you know, oh hum, here's three colors. Um, but yours are vibrant. And, you know, one of my art professors would say, these are dynamic. I can see movement, you know, and I can. And I love that. And I love the gradient backgrounds. They're just enough. They're not too much. Like here, I love this one.
Mm-hmm.
The way it plays out. Really nice work on the pips. I'm really drawn to them.
It's interesting because Mary Greer actually told me that my pip cards allowed her to finally understand how non-scenic pips work.
Yeah,
She also told me she didn't care at all for my court cards or trumps, but that she loved my pips. So go figure.
Well, I mean, I guess you could pick and choose. I mean, I like the deck. I love how sort of it's very familiar and very approachable, and that's what I like. I think it's a very usable deck, definitely, because I think a lot of people are very hesitant for working with a Marseille deck, especially for the pips. But you have the colors and the numbers to really help someone with that, and it's a great deck if you want to start getting to Marseille. That this is the deck to do it because it's very approachable.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
That was my hope that this deck could help people make the transition from our RWS clone to
Yes,
Marseille.
and the heritage behind Tarot of Marseille. You know, I think it's important to appreciate that. And I think you did that with this deck. You brought it to a more modern age and maybe opened up Marseille to another generation or maybe another audience that maybe wouldn't have considered the Marseille before. Do you have any favorite tarot decks aside from your own? Because you have this deck and then you have the Oracle deck, the Lolateria.
Yes, Lotteria.
Lotteria, which I've seen it. I went to your website. It looks really neat, and people can buy that on Make Playing Cards.
Yeah, actually, you can get it on in my Etsy shop now too.
Oh, cool.
My Etsy shop is called Feel Fine Conjure, and I've got a few up there. But otherwise, yes, you can go to the Game Grafter actually, not Make Playing Cards.
I will. I'll post a link to your Etsy shop so you can maybe you'll get some more traffic. I always
Okay.
promote people. Just
But
thank
I've
them.
had it. I've had it for months and only made my first sale uh, over the weekend, this
Uh-huh.
past weekend.
It
So,
happens. Maybe
it takes a while.
maybe your sales will pick up. So do you have any favorite decks in just off the top of your head? Because I know it can be very difficult to narrow.
Yeah, I'm very fond of my uh, Dussert photo reproduction of the Dodal.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a photo reproduction of the one held in the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. It's absolutely gorgeous. It probably informed my choices for Major Tom's Tarot of Marseille more than any other deck, although I did look at a lot of different decks while I was making this one. Um, so that's probably my favorite. I'm also quite fond of the Spiral Tarot,
Hmm.
uh, which was what Kay Steventon, I think that's her name, if I've got that correct. That was the deck I used for clients when I first went pro with tarot card reading, because I didn't want to use a straight Rider-Waite-Smith, and I liked the look of that. And then another deck I'm quite fond of is the Mountain Dream Tarot, which was the first photographic deck. It was released, I don't know, 74, 75,
I
uh,
haven't heard.
by a photographer rather than a tarot person, but I think she did a pretty good job of an RWS clone in photographs, and it was all analog photography, so darkroom tricks to make the cards rather than Photoshop, which was kind of nice. And it's still, I think she's on her third edition now,
Okay.
so it's been quite popular through the years. Worth checking out.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one.
She also used different colors for the suits.
Okay.
So, but it's very subtle. It's in the it's like the difference between a silver print and another kind of print in photography.
Hmm. Okay.
So,
Do you have any future projects that you're working on?
I do, but I'm not ready to talk about those yet.
It's fine, but we know that something might be coming.
Yes, you can look forward to another deck from me.
That's exciting. Um, I noticed there's a picture of Aleister Crowley, like right over your head behind you.
Oh yes, well, if you kind of
Oh yeah.
I've got weight and case and gosh, Rudolf Steiner's up there too. Uh, Lots of them. Those are people I admire.
So how often do you use the Thoth tarot?
I don't use it much at all, to be honest. I do use it when I'm teaching classes because I think everybody should be exposed to it. But most of my students choose to use the Rider-Waite anyway.
So you teach tarot, but you also do readings.
Yes,
You still do readings on your website. You do them virtually, but also in person.
I'm not actually doing any in person at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. Well, COVID times and.
Yeah, in the time of COVID, it's all via Zoom these days.
But you used to do like on the weekends. You would like saw on your website. That's what I gleaned.
Yeah, I used to go downtown Dallas,
Mhm.
Clyde Warren Park. I'd go out there on the weekends and do free readings for people. Just a one question reading.
And how was that experience?
Oh, very enjoyable. And it was, I'd usually take a student with me, and so they'd get a chance to read for strangers as well. And of course, in the park, you never know who's going to turn up, or what they're going to be asking about. So it was a really good experience for them as well. And then I would be there in case they ran into trouble, right?
Well, I think that's all I have as far as questions. Was there anything you'd like to say about Major Tom's Tarot of Marseille, or to leave everyone with?
Well, gosh, do I have anything I want to say? Well, I think it's a very usable deck. I use it myself almost exclusively, at least when reading for other people. The thing most people don't consciously pick up on is the number of jokes that are in the cards, particularly, in the trumps and in the courts. There's a joke in every card, and you either get it or you don't. It is, and the joke usually works with the meaning, or at least the meaning as I perceive it. It might not be as how you perceive it. It was an interesting experience, because as you started the interview, a lot of people are very passionate about the Tarot of Marseille, and when you take it upon yourself to change something about it, it
becomes
feelings,
controversial.
Yes, feelings can run high.
Yes.
And so when it first came out, I took a lot of flack from both purists and people who really didn't know anything at all about the Tarot of Marseille. Oh no, it's different. and it's really not. All I really changed was the clothing the people are wearing. All the other symbols that you would ordinarily expect are there. The bunny on the hermit, the snake on temperance. Those little details are there. Hermit and Thurman on the King of Swords. Those kinds of things. Those details, the postures, everything is the same. The only thing that's different is clothing. And people found that upsetting. And then, of course, there were people who just didn't agree with the choices. And, oh well, draw your own version if you don't like mine.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about the deck. It's been out since mine was published in 2007. I think that's
2007. Yeah.
So it's been out. It's been about a while, and it is still in print. Which that says something. It's still in print, and you can still get it, because sometimes things don't stay in print very long. And
I kind of wonder if it is still in print, or if because Major Tom's Tarot of Marseille was Schiffer's first tarot title.
Really? Well, I did not know that.
Absolutely, the first tarot title, and in fact, it was sort of the whole. Not just first tarot title, but first, quote, spirituality title as well for Schiffer books, and has grown into, of course, Red Feather now. But no, this was their first, and I'm thinking because it was their first, they might have printed a bunch of copies.
Yeah, because I just got this last week, actually.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. They
sent it to me. They said I chose it to review. They they say, choose stuff to review, and I'm like, oh, well, and this had intrigued me. I'd seen this on various websites, and I'm like, um, hmm. I just kept thinking, I'm like, I want to get that deck. I want to get a hold of it. And they sent it to me, and I'm glad they did, because it really is, I think it is really an interesting deck to, if you're not into Marseille, if you want to get into Marseille, it's a great bridge to help you. And it's funny, I love looking at the cards and the details. Some of the cards are very detailed, and I'm going to look for some of those jokes. 'Cause
Okay.
I love making people laugh, but also like bad jokes and sharing jokes and making people, just making up my stuff. So I love jokes and humor in life, injecting that, because you don't laugh, you gotta laugh. The world's too serious. Throw some humor in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, an easy one to find the joke in is the Emperor, right? That's the easy one to find the joke in, because the way he's dressed, backwards, baseball cap, uh, what sort of a t-shirt sort of thing, jeans, tennis shoes, big cold chain. Looks like he might be hanging out in front of the 7-Eleven,
Yeah.
right? But this is the Emperor.
Yeah, it's like, what emperor would be wearing that? That's kind of like, especially those tennis shoes, but he's got this regal, scepter and the shield, and he's on the throne.
He's kind of like a hip hop artist,
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me, and I'm going to work on the video this week and send you a copy, and
Okay.
include all your links, your website, your Etsy shop, and definitely your Schiffer deck, where people can get it from Schiffer. So yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much. And
Good. Well, let's hope you can sell a few.
yeah, so I hope you have a great day. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Okay.
Well, thanks for thinking of me and my deck.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.